Howdy folks, here's a video that I've been sitting on for about 6 months. I'm gonna take a simple data analysis problem and I'm gonna apply 10 years of me using Excel onto it. Starting from what I would have done back then to what I would have done a few years ago to what I do now. I'm gonna use 4 separate methods in order to show you how to analyze this data, and that's using SUMIFS in a range, SUMIFS in a table, then a pivot table, and then lastly, dynamic arrays. This video is going to blow your mind.
Is it true that you can leap over a chair from a standing position?
It depends on the size of the chair. I'll cheat a little bit.
Yeah.
So maybe it won't blow your mind as much as Bill Gates jumping a chair, but I guarantee it will help, and it will show you the possibilities for solving one problem multiple different ways. So let's jump into the video. So here I have some pump data across multiple months. In my table, I have timestamp, totalized flow, year, month, and time. And they produce these flow patterns that you see in the pivot chart. I want to do a simple analysis that I think most of you would be able to do by yourself, which is I want to sum the flow based on the particular month. And so if we're summing based on a certain criteria, we should be looking at the SUMIFS formula, or SUMIFS, as some people like to say. To set that up, I'm going to get rid of this pivot chart and we're going to write some formulas. So when I first started using Excel, this is what I would do. I would look and I have the month and I'd write 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And in my flow column, I'd do the SUMIFS. That doesn't say SUMIFS. SUMIFS formula, and the sum range, I would choose the totalized flow. The criteria range, I would select the month. And last but not least, the criteria will be the cell you can't see behind G3, close brackets. Okay, so what we have here is 468 megaliters, and that is the total flow for April. Pretty straightforward, right? Now, to make sure when we drag the formula down, it works correctly, I'm going to click F4 to lock these cell references, click enter, and then drag down. So that's the first way, and there's nothing wrong with that method at all. It gets you your answer that you need. Let's jump into the second way, which I think is a little bit better though. With this second example, we start with a very similar structure. However, I'm going to click on this data set and I'm going to go Control A, Control T, and click enter to turn it into a table. You'll know that it's a table when this table design menu option comes up. I'm going to come in here, and instead of table 2, I'm going to call it data to make it nice and simple. I'm still going to write my SUMIFS formula, SUMIFS, and I'm still going to use my totalized flow, but this time you'll notice that the formula looks a little bit different. It's not a range anymore, it's a structured reference. That's because we're using tables. So my sum range is my totalized flow, month is going to be criteria range 1, and then the cell next to it is J3, and that's going to close our formula. Same thing, I'm going to pull this formula down, and there you have it. We could even go one step further if you wanted to and make this a table as well. God, tables are good. If I was doing a one-off quick calculation, that's likely the method that I would use. If, however, I knew that I was going to get new data in and have to keep updating the table, I would use one of these next 2 methods instead. For this next example, I want to grab the data that's within our table, come to Insert, Pivot Chart, and Pivot Table. It's already selected my table because the table is called data, but I want to drop it onto the existing worksheet, and I'm going to put it right at the top here in cell M2. Okay. I'm going to get rid of the chart just for now. And in my pivot table, I want to take the totalized flow and drag it into the values column. And I want to take the month and drag it into the rows column. So you can see that that method was really quick. I love pivot tables and I still use them today. I discovered them a few years ago and I really enjoy how it's a no code, no formula solution. It's simply click, drag, and drop. This last method I'm going to show you is for a fully automated report if you had new data coming in all the time. It takes a little bit more to set up the charts, but it is really powerful. Let me show you that now. I'm going to set this up in a similar way. So it's going to look similar, but it's going to be fundamentally different. So in this one, I'm not going to hard code in the months like I did in the SUMIFS range and the SUMIFS table. Instead, I'm going to use the unique function. The first argument asks for the array. So I'm going to come to our table and go to month. The second two arguments are optional, so I'm not going to use them. I'm going to close the brackets and click enter. You'll notice that this range has spilled down. So I only wrote one formula. However, there are multiple outputs over multiple cells, and they're all contained within this blue box, which is called the spilled range. I'm going to write a SUMIFS formula, just like we did in the first two examples. And the sum range is going to be the same as before. So the total flow and the criteria range will be the month, and the criteria will be the month. However, in this example, I'm going to use the hash symbol, which is going to pick up every value in that spilled range. Close brackets, enter. There's only one formula in the month column, and there's only one formula in the total row column. And the total row column is dependent on the month. And so however big the month is, the total flow column will match that size as well. This is super powerful, and I'll show you why. So let's put these all in graphs to visualize what we're seeing. For this last one, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to create a named range for the month values and for the total flow values. On my line chart, right click, select data, add. I'm going to call it total flow. And for the series values, instead of selecting a range, I'm going to type in the worksheet name, which is data, put an exclamation point, and then I'm going to put in flow 1, which is the named range we just created. Click OK. And for the horizontal axis labels, click edit. And very similar, equals data, exclamation mark, because that's the worksheet we're working in, and month 1. OK. And then click OK. Now we have 4 charts that kind of look like they do the exact same thing, but I'll show you what the main difference is now. Remember, I've got up to month 10, so I have up until October data. What if I wanted to add November data as well? Well, I have that in a worksheet here. I'm going to grab this, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it to the bottom of my data set. When I come back up to the top now, you'll notice that the SUMIFS range is the same, the SUMIFS table is the same, the pivot table is the same. However, my dynamic array has changed. It has automatically picked up the November data, and not only that, but the chart has updated as well. And I can show you what that looks like when I jump into here. Because the formula is referencing the whole table and the month column, when extra data was included, it picked up that as well. Because our flow column is dependent on this P3 hash, so it's picking up every single month, it's also going to automatically resize. For my pivot table lovers out there, you will also know that this can be done with pivot tables. So if I click anywhere within the pivot table, come up to pivot table analyze, and then select refresh, it will also pick up the November data and the chart will update as well. And there you have it, 4 different methods for solving the exact same problem. And this is where people get caught up in Excel because there are so many different ways to do the exact same thing. I get it. You might be asking now, well, which way was the correct method? And I would say that depends. First of all, did you get the answer that you wanted? Well, if you got the answer you wanted, you could use any of the 4. If it's just something quick and easy, don't worry that you don't know all of these 4 methods yet. Just do whichever one suits you now. I'm here to just show that there are other ways of doing things. Personally, I don't like using method 1 because it's a bit more prone to errors. Method 2 is great, and if I was just doing a one-off analysis, that's what I would use most of the time. If I had new data coming in though, I would use methods 3 or method 4 because they can get updated really quickly and really easily. Method 3, pivot tables, I use a lot and I love. However, I know some people don't like using pivot tables or they don't like the fact that you have to click to refresh. And that's where method 4 comes in. Purely formulas and no clicking to refresh, it's all automated. Well, that's the video. Thanks very much for joining me. If you liked it, leave a comment or a like, or depending on what platform you're on, follow me or subscribe to my videos. Thanks very much. I'll see you next time.